How to catch a crayfish. Many people catch crayfish for food. You can capture a crayfish using a trap. However, some people prefer to catch crayfish by hand. In the event you trap a crayfish, you usually need to kill it shortly after, as it's illegal to transport live crayfish in many states. You can cook your crayfish when you get home. Method 1. Choosing a trap. 1. Buy a professional trap. If you're new to catching crayfish, a professional trap is your best option. There are a variety of options when it comes to crayfish traps. Choose a trap based on your specific needs. Regardless of the type of trap you're purchasing, make sure the entrance is less than 9.5 centimeters. This is a safety precaution to prevent mammalian animals, like otters, from entering the trap and drowning. Some traps are designed with a crawl-in entrance. These traps are usually meant to be set up and left overnight. If you're planning on catching crayfish while on an extended camping trip, you might want a trap like this. You can leave it in the water overnight and check in the morning to see if you caught anything. If you're going for a one-day trip, get a trap designed for lifting. These traps work somewhat like fishing poles. You lower them into the water, wait until you feel pressure, and then pull the trap upward to check for crayfish. 2. Use a small plastic cup. As crayfish are not particularly big, you may be able to get by with a simple plastic cup. If you're unaccustomed to handling live crayfish, this is not recommended. Crayfish are fast and do bite and claw. It may be hard to secure them in a cup if you lack experience. However, if you've caught crayfish before, you may want to save your money and use a cup. You use a cup as a trap manually. You would wait until you see a crayfish and then submerge your cup in the water. Then, you would slowly move the cup forward until the crayfish was behind it. Use a stick to scare the crayfish so it backs into the cup. Then, pull the cup out of the water. 3. Try a net. A net is a slightly less expensive option than a professional trap. It requires less manual effort than a simple cup, so it's a good in-between option. You can try a simple fish net, which you can buy at most sporting goods stores. Keep in mind a fish net may not be ideal. You can hurt a crayfish if its limbs get caught in a fishing net. Even if you intend to kill the animal for food, you want to minimize its suffering. Method 2. Using your trap. 1. Find the right bait. Once you've chosen a trap, you'll need bait. If you're using a cup or net, this may not be necessary. Meat is what is most often used to catch a crayfish. It's best to use real meat instead of artificial bait. Fish heads, bacon, and chicken carcasses work well. If you do not want to spend money on real meat, you can use a can of cat food with holes punched into the top. Crayfish are primarily attracted to smell. They may follow the smell of the cat food. How you bait a trap depends heavily on the trap you're using. You would usually place it inside the trap, close to the back. Some crayfish traps may have special sections where you can place the bait. 2. Place your chosen trap in the right area. You need to place your trap in an area where you're likely to find crayfish. Crayfish generally prefer clear, still water. They also prefer a rocky habitat. Look for shallow, still waters. You can also look for eddies with fast streams, as crayfish may flow into your traps. Rivers and brooks are where crayfish are most often found. They tend to congregate in warmer bodies of freshwater. If you live in a colder area, it may be harder to find and catch crayfish. 3. Kill crayfish shortly after trapping them. In many states, it's illegal to transport live crayfish. You also do not want to cause the animals excessive stress. You should kill the crayfish shortly after they enter your traps. If you're going for a day-long fishing trip, you should keep crayfish alive until the end of the day. This minimizes decay. You can keep crayfish in a sealable container. Keep crayfish between layers of moist fabric. You might want to put ice between the layers of fabric, but be sure not to let ice directly touch the crayfish. When you're finished fishing, you can kill the crayfish by stabbing them with a kitchen knife. Stab around the top of the body, where their head joins the abdomen. Method 3. Catching by hand. 1. Wear protective gloves. Some people prefer to simply catch crayfish by hand. You should not do this unless you have experience handling live crustaceans. Always wear protective gloves when catching crayfish by hand. They may nip or claw when frightened. 2. Find crayfish. Crayfish are often found in shallow water. You may find crayfish congregated under a rock. Wade in a flowing, rocky creek and lift up stones and rocks. Look for gatherings of crayfish. Once again, crayfish prefer shallow waters. They're usually found in brooks and rivers. They may, however, show up in fast-moving eddies on occasion. Keep in mind crayfish do most of their moving during the night. It can be very hard to find crayfish during daylight hours. It might be a good idea to bring a flashlight and seek out crayfish during the night. You can find them by shining a flashlight into the water. 3. Move slowly. When you find your crayfish, move slowly. Crayfish easily pick up on vibrations in the water. As you close in on your crayfish, move your hand slowly. Many people feel inclined to grab at the crayfish quickly, but this actually makes you less likely to catch them. 4. Aim for the midsection. When picking up a crayfish by hand, aim for the midsection. Use 2 fingers. When 2 fingers are grasping around the hard shell of a crayfish's midsection, it's very difficult for it to fight back. Once you've secured a crayfish, place it in a sealable container. When you're done catching crayfish, kill them as you would when using a trap. Method 4. Avoiding pitfalls. 1. Release breeding crayfish. It's unethical to catch and kill a crayfish that is breeding. This can diminish the population. Make sure you throw back any breeding females you catch. Crayfish hold larvae under their tails. A crayfish with a large tail may be a breeding female and should be thrown back into the water. If you're uncertain if you have a male or female, look at the crayfish's front claws. Larger front claws are indicative of a male crayfish. 2. Make sure you have the proper license. Some states may require a license to catch crayfish. You should double-check your state's regulations before catching crayfish. You should be able to find this information on your state's Department of Natural Resources website. If you're having trouble finding the answer, try calling a DNR office during office hours to ask for clarification. 3. Seek medical attention in the event of an injury. Crayfish do claw and bite when frightened. You can minimize your risk of injury by wearing gloves. In the event you are nipped by a crayfish, wash the wound in water and soap. Then, seek medical care to make sure you do not need further treatment. While many crayfish bites can be treated at home, it's a good idea to be safe and have it looked at by a doctor.